My sister went pale when I asked my mother about the beach house I'd gifted her. My mother looked confused and said, "What beach house?" That's when I knew. My sister had stolen it. So, I set a legal trap that would not only expose her, but destroy the fantasy life she had built on her own family's betrayal. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The restaurant was too loud. The clinking of glasses and the forced, cheerful music felt like sandpaper against my nerves. I'd been running on fumes for weeks, closing a monstrous commercial real estate deal that had demanded 17-hour days and more stress than I thought my body could handle. I felt a dull throb behind my right eye, a familiar migraine warning me to slow down. But this was Mom's 65th birthday, and I wouldn't miss it for the world. I'd plastered on a smile, wrapped her gift in the car, and tried to compartmentalize the exhaustion. "Amelia, darling, you look thin," my mother Helen said, her hand finding mine across the table. Her touch was warm, as always, her brow furrowed with that familiar maternal concern that still made me feel like a child. "Just a big case, Mom. It's over now," I said, squeezing her hand. "Happy birthday." "Thank you, sweetie. It's just so wonderful to have everyone here." Everyone? That meant me, my father, Frederick, who was happily detailing his latest golf game to my uncle, and my sister, Jessica. Jessica, who was, as usual, curating the experience rather than living in it. She was holding her phone at a precise angle, filming the champagne bottle in its silver bucket. "Just getting a little content for my followers, guys," she'd announced, as if she were a war correspondent and not a 35-year-old lifestyle influencer. Her feed was a pastel-toned fantasy of brunches I knew she couldn't afford and sponsored products that were delivered to my address, as she still used it for reliable mail. I'd spent my life building a career from granite and steel, long hours, brutal exams, and the unglamorous reality of contract law. Jessica had built a brand from filters and half-truths. The disparity had long been a quiet friction between us, but I'd always tried to be supportive, paying for her branding courses and forgiving the loans that never quite got paid back. I'd bought the beach house for Mom and Dad last year, a beautiful little cottage on the coast, as a surprise thank you for everything they'd done for me. It was my proudest achievement, a tangible symbol that their sacrifices had been worth it. Being a real estate attorney, I'd handled the purchase myself, placing it in a complex trust to protect it. Jessica, in a rare show of helpfulness, had offered to be the tech liaison for our parents, setting up the utilities, the Wi-Fi, the smart lock accounts. "You know how hopeless they are with apps, Amelia," she'd said, and I'd been grateful for the help. "To Helen," Dad announced, raising his glass. 65 and more beautiful than the day I met her. We all cheered, and as the chatter settled, I saw my opening. I hadn't spoken to Mom about the house in a few months. Jessica had been my intermediary. "Mom's just been so busy with her garden club," Jessica would text, or "Dad's back is acting up, they haven't been able to make the drive." It all seemed plausible. "Speaking of relaxing," I said, turning to my mother, "how are you enjoying the beach house? I was hoping to come down and visit next weekend, now that my case is closed." The music didn't stop. The glasses didn't stop clinking, but in our small bubble, the air evacuated. My father, Frederick, paused, his glass halfway to his lips. "Beach house." My mother, Helen, gave a little confused laugh. She looked at my dad, then at me. Her smile was genuine but utterly bewildered. "What beach house, sweetie?" I felt the blood drain from my face. It was a cold, sharp plunge. "The house, Mom, the cottage in Seaside, the one I bought for you last year, for your anniversary." Her confusion deepened. "Amelia, that's a wonderful thought, but you didn't buy us a house." She looked around, embarrassed, as if I were making a strange joke. "Did she, Frederick?" Dad just looked baffled. I don't think so, love." Then I saw her, my sister, Jessica. She hadn't moved. Her phone was still in her hand, but her arm was frozen. The blood had left her face so completely she looked like a porcelain doll. Her eyes were wide, fixed on her empty plate, and her perfectly glossed lips were parted in a silent, terrified O. She was chalk white. The noise of the restaurant faded to a dull roar. The throb behind my eye sharpened into a spike. I stood up, the legs of my chair scraping harshly against the floor. Every eye at the table, and several nearby, turned to me. I didn't look at my mother. I didn't look at my father. I looked directly at my sister, whose gaze was still pinned to the table, her entire body rigid with panic. "Jessica," I said, my voice cutting through the air, dangerously quiet. "You transferred it to yourself, didn't you?" The room went dead silent. Jessica's hand began to tremble, her phone clattering against the plate. She didn't look up. She couldn't look me in the eye. And in that moment, seeing her refusal, her guilt radiating off her in palpable waves, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was a lawyer. I had built my life on precision, on facts, and on the unassailable power of the law. My sister had just made the catastrophic mistake of trying to play a game she couldn't possibly win. "So I started, my voice clear and cold, am going to ask you one more time in front of our entire family. Where is our mother's house?" Jessica's head snapped up, her eyes blind with panic. She opened her mouth, but only a choked little gasp came out. I smiled, a thin, sharp smile that held no warmth at all. "I'll see you in court." The betrayal was worse than any professional loss. It was a hollowing out of my very foundation. The drive home was a blur of red taillights and pulsing street lamps, each one drilling into my migraine. My parents' worried voices from the birthday dinner echoed in my head. Helen's, "Amelia, what is going on? Jessica, why do you look so ill? Frederick, girls, please, we're in public. Let's not ruin your mother's birthday." We had left the restaurant in a state of fractured chaos. Jessica had finally burst into tears, not the tears of remorse, I noted, but the hot, angry tears of being caught. "I can't believe you'd accuse me of that," she'd sobbed, grabbing her purse. "You've always been jealous of me, always trying to make me look small." She de-stormed out, leaving me to pay the bill and manage our bewildered, devastated parents. Now, in the sterile quiet of my apartment, I sat at my desk, the adrenaline from the confrontation ebbing away, leaving a cold, hard resolve in its place. The emotional shock was profound. It felt like a physical weight in my chest. This was Jessica, my little sister, who I'd taught to ride a bike and helped with her college applications. But the lawyer in me was already taking over, pushing the hurt into a locked box. Emotion was a liability. What I needed were facts. I dialed Jessica's number. It rang once, twice, then clicked to voicemail. "Hey, it's Jess. Leave a message and make it sparkle." I hung up before the beep. I called again, straight to voicemail. She was blocking me. I sat back, rubbing my temples. This wasn't just an impulsive act. This was a calculated, long-term deception. A whole year. A year of "Mom loves the house" texts. A year of "Dad's back is too sore to make the drive." A year of curated lies while I was billing 80-hour weeks. I opened my laptop. The screen's glow illuminated my stark, modern living room, a life I had built with my own two hands, a life Jessica had openly coveted. "It's so easy for you, Amelia," she'd sigh. "You just win at everything." She never saw the sacrifice. She only saw the result. I pulled up the file on the beach house. There it was, safe and sound. The Helen and Frederick Coastal Trust. I was the trustee, my parents the sole beneficiaries. I had structured it this way for a reason, to protect the asset from any future claims, creditors, or, ironically, from any kind of financial manipulation. An irrevocable trust is a fortress. You can't just sign it away with a simple form. So what had Jessica done? I accessed the county's digital property records. I typed in the address. My stomach tightened. There it was, a quitclaim deed, filed 9 months ago, signed by Helen Martin and Frederick Martin, transferring all interest to Jessica Martin. My blood ran cold. The signatures were digital. "Mom, can you just click agree on this? It's for the electric company." "Dad, I need you to sign this online form for the new Wi-Fi install." That's how she would have done it, using their trust, their age, and their technological confusion against them. But she had forgotten one crucial thing. She had forgotten who I was. A quitclaim deed only transfers interest. If the signers have no legal interest to transfer, because their interest is locked away in an irrevocable trust, the deed is worthless. It's a piece of paper, a fantasy. She had transferred nothing. She had only committed fraud and forgery, and, as I was about to find out, so much more. My phone buzzed, a text from Jessica. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You're a monster, Amelia. You're trying to ruin my life just because you're unhappy." The audacity of it. The complete narcissistic reversal of victim and perpetrator. It was breathtaking. I typed back a simple reply. "You have 24 hours to call me and explain how you are going to return Mom's house. If you don't, I will file a report for felony fraud." Her reply was almost instantaneous. "It's my house. They gave it to me. You can't stand to see me happy. Leave me alone, or I'll get a restraining order against you for harassment." She was doubling down. She actually believed her own lie. Or, more likely, she thought I was as ignorant of the law as she was. She had forgotten that the fortress I'd built around that house wasn't just made of paper, it was made of my entire career. This wasn't a family dispute anymore. This was a hunt. Growing up, Jessica and I were two sides of a coin. I was the responsible one, the one who saved her allowance, did her homework on Friday night, and was terrified of disappointing our parents. Jessica was the charming one, the one who could talk her way out of any trouble, who collected friends like she collected charms for her bracelet, and who always knew how to make our mom laugh. I'd paid for her first car, a loan that was forgiven on her 25th birthday. I'd co-signed for her first apartment, a lease I ended up having to pay to break when she decided to find herself in Thailand for 3 months. I did it because she was my sister, because I believed her talent was creative and mine was practical, and that my job was to provide the scaffold for her to build her dreams on. But her dreams became more and more expensive, and her gratitude grew thinner. When I made partner at my firm, the first person I called was Jessica. There was a long, cold silence on the line. "Wow," she'd finally said, her voice flat. "So you'll be even richer. Great, must be nice." It wasn't congratulations. It was an accusation. Her lifestyle influencer career was the perfect storm for her. It monetized her charm and her jealousy. She wasn't just living a life, she was performing it. And the performance required props, designer bags, 5-star hotel brunches, and apparently a beach house. My parents, Helen and Frederick, were the perfect audience. They were good, trusting people from a generation that believed in handshakes and the inherent goodness of their children. They saw my success as a blessing and Jessica's creativity as something to be admired, even if they didn't quite understand it. "She's just so clever with that little phone of hers," Mom would say, scrolling through Jessica's flawless feed. When Jessica had offered to handle the tech for the beach house, my parents had been overjoyed. "It's so wonderful to see you girls working together," Mom had said, beaming. "Amelia, you're so practical, and Jessica, you have such an eye for design. You'll make the cottage just beautiful." That's when the lies must have started. I pieced it together in the harsh blue light of my monitor at 3 a.m. To me, she'd say, "Mom and Dad are just so tired. They find the drive draining. I'm heading down this weekend to check on the pipes, though, don't worry." To them, she'd say, "Amelia is still tied up with the permits. The county is being a nightmare. It's just sitting empty, but I'll handle it. Don't you or Dad worry your heads about it." She created 2 different realities, with herself as the hero in both, the dutiful daughter to me, the savvy problem solver to them. And for a year, she'd gotten away with it. I opened a new browser tab. The quitclaim deed was a bluff, a rookie mistake, but it proved her intent. Now I needed to know what she was doing. If she thought the house was hers, she wouldn't just be letting it sit empty. I went to the top short-term rental sites. I typed in the address of the beach house. My heart hammered against my ribs. There it was, the seaside influencer's dream, hosted by Jessie. The photos were unmistakable. There was Mom's antique quilt, the one I'd specifically had framed, tossed over a sofa as a boho accessory. There were my father's fishing rods, which he'd been asking about for months, mounted on the wall as rustic decor. And the reviews, there were dozens of them. An amazing getaway, Jessie was the perfect host. 5 stars, the house is gorgeous, right on the beach. We'll be back. Thanks for the great stay, Jessie. She wasn't just visiting the house. She was living in it, and she was renting it out. She was running a full-blown, illegal hotel business using my parents' gift as her personal cash machine. My fury was so cold and so total that it felt like peace. The emotional, hurt older sister was gone. The prosecutor had taken her place. I screenshotted every review, every booking, every picture. I cross-referenced the dates with her social media. Sure enough, on weekends the house was booked. Her Instagram feed was full of pictures from a friend's apartment in the city. She wasn't just a thief. She was a meticulous, brazen liar. She'd been laundering her income from the rentals through her influencer business, claiming it as sponsored content revenue. I leaned back, my mind racing. She hadn't just forgotten I was a lawyer, she'd forgotten I was a real estate lawyer. This was my backyard. My phone, which had been silent for hours, buzzed. A text from my mother. "Amelia, your father and I are very worried. Jessica called us, crying. She said you threatened her. Please, darling, what is this all about? You two have always been so close. This is tearing your father apart. Please fix this." My fingers hovered over the keys. Please fix this. The familiar refrain of my entire life. I was always the one who had to fix it. "I am, Mom," I typed back. "I'm fixing it right now." I picked up the phone and dialed the number of the best private investigator I knew. "Marcus," I said, "I have a job for you, and it's a rush." The shift from victim to strategist was as clean as a circuit breaker flipping. The hurt was still there, a low, toxic hum beneath the surface, but my professional instincts were now in full control. I was no longer a sister mourning a betrayal. I was an attorney building a case. The first step was Marcus, my private investigator. He was a bulldog, a former financial crimes detective who found spreadsheets more thrilling than car chases. "Let me guess," he'd said, his voice gravelly over the phone. "Money, family, or both?" "Both," I'd replied, and I sent him my initial findings. The fraudulent quitclaim deed, the rental listings, Jessica's social media links. The second step was managing my parents. This was the hardest part. They were caught in the crossfire, their confusion turning to a deep, heartbreaking sadness. She wouldn't," Mom whispered to me over coffee, her hands trembling. "Jessica, she's just a little lost, Amelia. She's always looked up to you. Maybe she was just trying to be like you." "By stealing from you, Mom," I kept my voice gentle but firm. "By lying to all of us for a year." "Frederick is he hasn't left his study," she said, her eyes welling with tears. "He keeps looking at his fishing rods and her pictures. He just can't understand." "Mom, I need you and Dad to trust me," I said, taking her hands. "I am going to handle this, but I need you to do something for me. I need you to not talk to Jessica. Not yet. She will call you, and she will cry, and she will tell you that I am the one being cruel. I need you to tell her that all communication has to go through me, your attorney." Her eyes widened. "My attorney, Amelia, you're my daughter. And as your daughter, I'm protecting you, but as your attorney, I'm going to fix this. Please, Mom, this is the only way." Reluctantly, she agreed. The blockade was set. Jessica's primary emotional leverage, her ability to manipulate our parents, was cut off. Now I could focus on the clever trap, which was the law itself. The beauty of the Helen and Frederick Coastal Trust was its ironclad nature. As I'd explained to Marcus, the quitclaim deed was Jessica's smoking gun confession. By signing it and, crucially, filing it with the county, she had created a public, permanent record of her intent to commit fraud. She had literally handed me Exhibit A. Marcus called me 48 hours later. "You were right," he said, and I could hear the grim satisfaction in his voice. "She's not just renting it, she's been living there full time. but that's not the half of it. Go on, I said, opening a fresh legal pad. She's not paying the property taxes. The county has sent 3 delinquency notices. They're about 30 days from putting a lien on the property. My blood boiled. She was going to let the house, my parents' house, be seized by the county for non-payment, all while pocketing thousands in rental income. There's more, Marcus said. I ran her name. She's got over $50,000 in credit card debt. 2 of her cards are in collections. The lifestyle is a house of cards. This beach house wasn't a bonus, Amelia. It was a lifeline. What about the rental income? That's the best part. She's running it all through a personal checking account. No separate business, no LLC, nothing. She's commingled every penny. I got a man inside her bank, pulled the statements. She's taken in, let's see, $94,000 in the last 9 months. I nearly dropped the pen. $94,000. And I'd be willing to bet, Marcus continued, that she hasn't declared a dime of that to the IRS. Add that to the wire fraud for the digital signatures and the felony-level fraud. She's not just in family trouble, Amelia. She's in federal trouble. I had her. The case was no longer just about a worthless deed. It was about tax evasion, wire fraud, forgery, and theft. The trap was set. Now I just needed to get the wolf to walk into it. My phone rang. It was Jessica. The blockade had worked. Her attempts to get to our parents had failed. What do you want, Amelia? She snarled, her voice stripped of its usual airy charm. I want to talk, I said calmly. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Gee, about the house, I want to clear it up. There's nothing to clear up. It's mine. You're just a jealous old hag who can't stand to see me win. You're right, maybe I am, I said, the false concession hanging in the air. Look, I'm willing to discuss this in person. Let's have a family meeting. You, me, Mom, and Dad, we can sort out the misunderstanding. My office, Friday at 10. We can sign some papers, make it all official. There was a long silence. I could hear her mind working. Sign papers? What papers? Just papers to divide the asset. Maybe we can find a solution where you get to keep it, but Mom and Dad get, I don't know, visitation rights. We'll figure it out. I made my voice sound tired, defeated. This was the bait. Her arrogance and her belief in my jealousy were the hook. She thought I was waving a white flag. She thought she had won so completely that I was coming to the table to beg for scraps. Fine, she sniffed, her confidence returning. Your office, Friday at 10, and don't try anything stupid. I have a lawyer too, you know. I'm glad to hear it, I said. Bring him. I hung up and smiled. She didn't have a lawyer. And she was walking straight into a legal supernova. Friday morning, the glass-walled conference room at my firm felt like an arena. I'd arrived at dawn. On the gleaming mahogany table, I had arranged 3 folders. Folder 1, the trust. It contained the original, notarized, ironclad, irrevocable trust agreement. Folder 2, the fraud. It contained the fraudulent quitclaim deed, the delinquent property tax notices, and the digital signature records. Folder 3, the business. It contained Marcus's entire report. The bank statements showing $94,000 in deposits, the screenshots of the rental listings and reviews, and a printout of her social media posts, cross-referenced to prove she was lying about her location on rental-heavy weekends. My parents sat at one end of the table. Helen looked pale, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Frederick was silent, his jaw set, staring at the empty chair where Jessica would sit. They were here as witnesses, but also as the victims. They had to see the truth for themselves. At 10:05 a.m., the door opened. Jessica swept in, not with a lawyer, but alone. She was dressed for battle, a severe black blazer, hair pulled back in a tight, intimidating ponytail. She looked less like a breezy influencer and more like a cornered animal. "Let's get this over with," she said, tossing her designer bag onto a chair. She refused to look at our parents. "Mom, Dad." "Jessica," I said, my voice calm and professional. I remained standing. "Thank you for coming. You said you believed there was a misunderstanding about the beach house. I am here to clear it up. You claimed Mom and Dad gave it to you. They did, she snapped, her eyes flashing. They said I could manage it, and they'd rather I have it than you. You have everything. Is that true, Mom? I asked, not looking away from Jessica. Helen flinched. No, darling, she whispered. We didn't even know. She's lying, Jessica shouted, slamming her hand on the table. You've poisoned them against me. I haven't had to say a word, I said, my voice dropping. You've done all the work yourself. Let's start with this, shall we? I slid folder 1 across the table. This is the Helen and Frederick Coastal Trust. It's an irrevocable trust, meaning the asset, the house, is legally owned by the trust, not by Mom and Dad directly. They are the beneficiaries. I am the trustee. Do you know what that means, Jessica? She stared at the legal jargon, her brow furrowing. It's just lawyer talk. It means, I said, that Mom and Dad cannot legally transfer the property. They have no individual interest to sign away. It's legally impossible. They could sign 100 pieces of paper. It wouldn't matter. The house belongs to the trust. I then slid folder 2 in front of her. Which brings us to this. This is the quitclaim deed you filed with the county. The one you had them digitally sign, claiming it was for the electric company. Jessica's face went from angry to ashen. She finally understood. This document, I continued, is legally worthless. It transferred nothing. It's a fantasy. But what it is a confession. It is a public, filed with the state, permanent record of your intent to commit fraud. It is also, by the way, forgery, since you obtained their signatures under false pretenses. That's a felony. You're lying, she stammered, but her voice was weak. The bravado was gone. Am I? I picked up folder 3. Let's talk about what you've been doing with the house you own. You've been running an illegal hotel, haven't you? The seaside influencer's dream. Her head snapped up, her eyes wide with genuine shock. This she hadn't seen coming. $94,000, Jessica. I let the number hang in the silent room. $94,000 in 9 months deposited into your personal checking account, all while you let the property taxes go delinquent. The house was 30 days from a tax lien. You were going to let Mom and Dad's house be seized by the county. No, she whispered. No, I was going to pay them. You were going to get caught, I corrected her. You have committed wire fraud by using digital signatures deceitfully. You have committed tax evasion by not declaring $94,000 in income to the IRS. You have committed felony-level theft and fraud against your own parents. My father, who had been silent, finally spoke. His voice was thick with a sorrow that cut me deeper than any anger. Jessie, he said, my fishing rods, you put them on the wall. I asked you where they were. You said they must have been lost in the move. That finally is what broke her. The specific, personal detail, not the felonies, not the legal terms, but the lie about a set of fishing rods. Jessica's face crumpled. The tight ponytail, the blazer, the bravado, it all dissolved. She buried her face in her hands and let out a dry, gasping sob. You don't understand, she wept, her words muffled. The debt, everyone expects me to be. I just wanted what she had. I just wanted it to be easy for once. Easy, I said, my voice rising for the first time. You think any of this was easy for me? You think my career was easy? I didn't steal it, Jessica. I earned it. And you tried to steal from the 2 people who have given us everything. You let them believe their gift was a permit problem while you sold it off night after night to strangers. I walked to the end of the table and stood directly in front of her. She wouldn't look at me. This meeting is over, I said, my voice cold again. You have 2 options, and you're going to choose one of them before you leave this room. The silence that followed my ultimatum was heavy and absolute. The only sound was Jessica's ragged breathing. My mother was crying silently, her hand over her mouth. My father just stared at his youngest daughter, his face a mask of profound disappointment. You can't do this, Jessica whispered, trying to gather the shattered pieces of her bravado. We're family. You stopped being family when you forged their names, I said flatly. You stopped being family when you stole $94,000 from them. You are now a defendant in a civil and criminal case, and I am the attorney for the plaintiffs. So, here are your options. I placed 2 new documents on the table. Option A, the confession. I slid a thick, multi-page document toward her. This is a full, voluntary confession. It details everything: the fraudulent quitclaim deed, the $94,000 in rental income, the tax evasion. It is also a legally binding promissory note. You will pay back every single cent. The $94,000 in income, plus the back taxes I've already paid this morning on your behalf, plus all of Marcus's PI fees, plus my firm's legal fees. The total, I glanced at the cover sheet, is $118,400. You will sign this, and you will liquidate whatever assets you have: your car, your designer bags, your influencer equipment within 30 days. The rest will be garnished from any future income until it is paid in full. Her eyes, red and swollen, scanned the number. She looked like she was going to be sick. What's option B? She stammered. Option B, the consequences. I tapped the second, much thinner folder. This is a copy of the criminal complaint I have prepared. It's already been messengered to the district attorney's office, along with all my evidence. It outlines felony fraud, forgery, and grand theft. I've also included a referral to the IRS's Criminal Investigation Division regarding the tax evasion. They tend to be very thorough. I leaned in closer. If you choose option A, you sign this confession, you pay back the money, and we handle this in the family. I will call the DA and retract my complaint. You will be broke, and you will be humbled, but you will be free. If you choose option B, or if you stand up and walk out that door, I will make one phone call and the DA will file those charges by the end of the day. You will be arrested. You will lose your brand, your followers, and your freedom. You will go to prison, Jessica. It's that simple. This was the moment. The culmination of a year of lies and a week of relentless investigation. Jessica looked at our parents, her face a desperate, pleading mask. Mom, Daddy, are you going to let her do this to me? My mother couldn't speak. She was weeping too hard. My father, Frederick, stood up slowly. He was a quiet, gentle man, but his presence suddenly filled the room. He walked over to Jessica and looked down at her. You asked me where my fishing rods were, Jay. Essie, he said, his voice shaking with restrained power. You looked me right in the eye and you lied. You stole from your mother. You broke her heart. He pointed a trembling finger at the paperwork. You sign the papers. You fix what you broke. This is not Amelia doing this to you. This is you. That was it, the final, devastating blow. Her last line of emotional defense was gone. She knew our parents would not save her. Her arrogance, her anger, her entire influencer persona, it all just evaporated. She was just a small, terrified woman in a mountain of trouble she had built herself. With a shaking hand, Jessica pulled the confession toward her. She picked up the pen. I have to pay it all back. Every cent, I said. She stared at the final page, her signature line. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a new, unfamiliar emotion. It wasn't just fear. It was respect, the kind of respect born from total defeat. She finally saw me, not as her jealous older sister, but as the person who held all the cards. She signed her name. I took the document, reviewed the signature, and nodded. I then slid a final piece of paper toward her. This is a no-contact order and a trespass warning. You are not to contact Mom or Dad directly or indirectly. And you are, of course, forbidden from setting foot on the beach house property. All communication will go through me. Do you understand? She just nodded, her face pale and slick with tears. Good, I said. Now get out of my office. The victory in the conference room felt hollow. There was no triumph in watching my sister's life implode, only a grim, necessary finality. The true climax wasn't about her defeat, it was about reclaiming what she had poisoned. The beach house, which had been a symbol of my success and love, now felt like a crime scene. 2 weeks later, I drove my parents down to the coast. The locks had been changed, the delinquent taxes were paid, and a cleaning crew had scrubbed the house from top to bottom. Jessica's boho decor and rustic props were gone, donated to a local shelter. My father's fishing rods were back in the garage, oiled and ready. As I unlocked the front door, I felt a knot of anxiety. I had set the legal trap and it had worked, but the emotional trap was still sprung. Would my parents ever be able to see this place as a gift, or would it forever be the house their daughter stole? My mother, Helen, stepped inside first. She was quiet, her steps hesitant. The house was clean but sterile. It was an empty shell. She walked over to the large picture window overlooking the ocean and just stood there. My father, Frederick, went straight to the wall where his rods had been hung. He ran a hand over the fresh spackle that covered the nail holes, his expression unreadable. "Well," I said, my voice too bright, "it's clean, we can get new furniture, we can make it ours." My mother turned from the window, her face was thoughtful. She was always so. Angry, wasn't she? She said, almost to herself. I never really saw it. I thought it was just spirit." "She was jealous, Helen," Dad said, joining her at the window. "Jealous of her sister, jealous of what we had, and it ate her up." "I know," Mom whispered. She looked at me, her eyes clear for the first time in weeks. "Amelia, you did what you had to do. You were strong for us because we were not." I just wanted to give you this," I said, my voice finally breaking, the exhaustion and the hurt of the last few weeks catching up to me. "I wanted you to have a place of peace, and she turned it into a business, a lie." My mother walked over to me, and, for the first time since the birthday dinner, she pulled me into a real hug, the kind she used to give me when I was a child. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, stroking my hair. "It's just a house. You are the gift, your strength, your loyalty, that's the gift. This is just wood and glass." My father put his arms around both of us. "Your mother is right, but," he added, with the first glimmer of a smile I'd seen in weeks, "it is a very nice house." That night, we sat on the back deck, wrapped in blankets, listening to the ocean. We didn't talk about Jessica. We didn't talk about the money or the law. We talked about old family vacations, about my first day of law school, about Dad's plan to teach his hypothetical, future grandkids how to fish off the small dock. We were, for the first time in a very long time, just a family. The betrayal had lanced a boil that had been festering for decades. The quiet friction, the unspoken resentments, the toxic imbalance in our relationships. The public showdown at the dinner had been the accusation. The conference room had been the trial. But this was the verdict, and the verdict was peace. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and salt air. I found my dad on the dock, cast in. A line into the surf. I found my mom in the kitchen, humming as she made pancakes, using the new pans I'd bought to replace the ones Jessica had borrowed. "She called, you know," Mom said quietly, not looking up from the stove. My stomach tensed. "When?" "Last night on the house phone, she didn't know we were here." "What did she want?" "To apologize," Mom said. She flipped a pancake, her hand steady. She's in a program for debt and for something else," she said. "I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sick. I'm trying to get better." "How do you feel?" I asked. Helen was quiet for a long moment. "I feel sad for her, but I feel at peace for us." She pointed with her spatula to the deck. "Now, go set the table. Your father is going to be hungry." I walked out onto the deck, plates in hand. The sun was burning off the morning fog, and the ocean was a brilliant, endless blue. The house was no longer a crime scene. It was home. The downfall of Jessica was as quiet as her lifestyle had been loud. She liquidated her assets, as promised. The designer bags, the high-end camera equipment, the laptop she used to edit her fantasies, all of it was sold off in a grim, online fire sale. She moved out of her expensive city apartment and into a small, rented room. The promissory note was active, and a portion of her paycheck from her new job, a data entry position at a logistics company, was garnished every month. It would take her more than a decade to pay it all back. Her influencer account, of course, went dark. Her last post was a generic, taking a break for my mental health, which was met with a few sympathetic comments and then quickly forgotten. The digital world she had poured her life into moved on without her in an instant. My firm handled the legal side with quiet efficiency. We filed the appropriate paperwork to clear the fraudulent deed from the county records, erasing her claim forever. We settled the tax debt, with her garnished payments already beginning to refill the trust's accounts. My professional network ensured the matter was handled discreetly, a favor I knew I would one day have to repay, but one that was worth it to protect my parents from a public scandal. The true resolution, however, wasn't financial. It was the long, slow process of healing. My parents spent nearly every weekend at the beach house. My dad caught so many fish he started a fish club with the neighbors. My mom planted a garden in the sandy soil, and against all odds, her roses bloomed. The house, which I had built with money, they were rebuilding with love. I saw Jessica 6 months later. It was at a routine mediation I was required to attend to review the payment schedule. The woman who walked in was someone I barely recognized. Her hair was its natural color, pulled back in a simple elastic. She wore no makeup. She was thin, but not in the curated way she'd been before. She just looked tired. We sat across from each other. "You're current on your payments," I said, all business. "I know," she said, her voice quiet. I wanted to say, thank you." I raised an eyebrow. "Thank you." You didn't. You could have destroyed me," she said, looking at her hands. "You could have sent me to prison. You didn't. You just took the money." "It wasn't just money, Jessica," I said, my voice firm but not unkind. "It was Mom and Dad's trust." "I know," she whispered. I'm in therapy, a lot of therapy. I see it now. I see all of it." She finally looked up at me and her eyes were clear. The old, familiar fire of jealousy was gone. "I'm sorry, Amelia. I am so sorry." I hadn't expected it. I had been prepared for resentment, for excuses, for more manipulation, but not for this. "I hear you're going to the house a lot," she said, a small, sad smile on her face. "Mom sent me a picture. Her roses they're beautiful." "Yes," I said, "they are." I signed the final paper and stood up. "Keep making the payments, Jessica. Get well." As I walked out, I felt the last, heavy anchor of that betrayal finally slip away. She was on her own path. I was on mine. And my family, my real family, was waiting for me. That evening, I drove to the beach house. I found Mom and Dad on the deck, sharing a bottle of wine. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. I sat down, and my mom handed me a glass. "To the house," my dad said, raising his. "To the family," my mom corrected him, smiling. I raised my glass, took a sip, and looked out at the water. The air was clean, the sound of the waves was steady, and for the first time in my entire life, everything felt, finally, in its right place.